Good morning to all of you. Today's session is a very interesting session. So let's begin. I hope you can all hear me. If you can't, please let me know and I'll stop. We'll repause and begin. So our first, um, we just do a quick recap. We have been able to understand the need for teams. We have been able to estimate the costs of putting together a team. We have been able to estimate the sales that the entire team can bring us and the advantages of working with different people and different ideologies and different capabilities. So now we move to the next stage, that is keeping people motivated. Um, Motivation for a leader can be to bring about strength and in adversity. All the circumstances that you will work under will be tough, and it will never be easy. Sometimes you will face challenges from within your team. Sometimes you will face challenges from customers, from competitors, and you as a team leader have to be able to provide motivation. You will have to align your team's targets, assign territories. We have discussed about this earlier, and you will be able to determine the performance of your team. So you will be able to give each and every team member a small goal of what they should achieve personally for themselves and also overall for the team and how they grow. And so you calibrate the goals based on their capability and what you want them to do in the coming year. And this is called like a result orientation. So motivation, alignment, and performance. One of the key methods to motivate people is through incentives. So today's session will be a lot on incentives. And as you can imagine, incentives could be monetary or non-monetary. We discuss the monetary ones first. Monetary is anything related with money, and so the first element could be the promise of a job. In our case study that we spoke about the fact that we took college graduates and we gave them a job, which was like a stage on which they perform, and that was the promise. Sometimes you can also have a monetary incentive by saying that if a person performs well, we will move you from probation to a fixed salary structure. So the promise of a job can also change in terms of the quality of the work or moving up the hierarchy in a company. The second element of monetary incentives would be bonuses and other financial incentives, and we'll discuss these in greater detail. And the third would be specific reward programs for specific individuals based on what they do for the overall team, based on specific actions that they have to perform. So the other type of non-monetary incentives could be, and these non-monetary incentives are actually much more incentivizing at a younger stage, in an early stage in your career. They are much more attractive. So these could be where, for example, you're a young trainee and you join the company, and the company sees some potential in you, and they decide that okay, we want to send you to our headquarters to train at the headquarter level. Maybe it could be in London, or maybe it could be in any other advanced place where they feel you will learn new skills and you will be able to apply those new skills. It could be that your headquarters is in Bombay, so they will train you in Bombay for 3 or 4 months and send you back to your territory. So the first element of a non-monetary incentive is to actually have an intense training program. The second form of incentivization is that they get you to feel overall part of a larger team. That means there's a unity of purpose. We have discussed this in the case study that we took up. where 200 or 300 practitioners got together each and every morning, and they decided their aims for the day, and it kept up the momentum or the feel good factor, and it kept driving the team to perform better and better. Again, this is the same example where 200 to 300 surveyors for the newspaper case study that we discussed began their mornings with a prayer and a purpose, and they discussed what they wanted to achieve by the end of the day. The supervisors were closely monitoring the success, failure, and behavior aberrations. So here is an example of a behavior aberration where, for example, let's say you walk in to perform a survey on a client's doorstep, and maybe they are not in the mood to help you with your survey, and they behave rudely with you, and you as a surveyor feel uh, it is nothing personal, but you feel offended, and therefore you may react in a way that was not expected of you. And so sometimes the trainers see these aberrations, and they try and help you to overcome this feeling of personal rejection. So it was not personal to you. It's just that the client did not want to talk early in the morning about what to expect in a newspaper. And therefore, these behavior aberrations are trained by the coaches, and it all leads to a personal growth. So this in itself is a training. It's a non-monetary incentive where a personal coach is actually spending time with you to get better on the job. This is the yes, please go ahead.
Question? Yeah. 200 to 300 surveyor began their morning with a prayer and purpose beginning. You want to ask this point?
Okay, so I'll just scroll back to the presentations that we had done earlier. This is the Dainik Bhaskar case study. Let me just try and see if I have it here. Yes, I'm just taking you back to a case study that we had discussed. We had spoken about Dainik Bhaskar. I hope you all remember. And we had spoken about the fact that um, uh, as to how they were very successful in doing their surveys. Try and find that in the module. We had spoken from here. We had spoken about Dainik Bhaskar and the fact that they were able to carve out a very successful newspaper, something that took 40 years to develop in the previous times. They had been able to do in about 10 years. They had gone tenfold in terms of their readerships. And how had they done this? We spoke about all of these things. This is Chandigarh. So basically, they carried out an in-depth survey where they went about meeting. Yeah, so they went about meeting customers, and they didn't do a typical survey. A typical survey would mean you'd go and meet 30 people, 50 people, 100 people, or 1,000 readers, and then based on a demographic profile. Then based on this demographic profile, which means that you'd estimate that you have certain female readership pattern, certain male readership pattern, English reading, Hindi speaking, and you put together that survey, and you estimate that for these 1,000 people, if this is what they want, you extrapolate it. So this is what we are doing here, and you say that this is what the overall market is demanding. In this case, they didn't do a typical survey. They didn't go out and meet 1,000 people. In order to start a run of 50,000 copies a day, they met 200,000 people. And how to meet 200,000 people? They had a team of 700 surveyors. They created a dummy newspaper, asked the customers to sign in. The team was trained in body language, grooming, approach methods, things like these. And they asked the right questions, very focused questions. They received the right answers based on of the 200,000 people, they had 90% success roughly. That means on day one, 172,000 had been signed up. So this is actually the example I'm bringing forward to the next case study. So I just close this down, and we are saying here that we had non-monetary incentives where every morning, I will bring you back to that exact slide, but what we are saying is the surveyors began their morning with a purpose. The purpose was very clearly defined that you have to go out and meet a certain number of customers, and you have to be sure about what questions you're asking them and be very sure about what they are saying. Bring that feedback back to the newspaper, and then the newspaper was designed based on what customer or potential customers had. So this is what I'm saying in terms of a non-monetary incentive. So you have a unity of purpose, a personal growth to each of the surveyors by having coaches work with them closely, and at the end of the day, they could have a situation where they were sharing their high points and their low points along with the managers, and there was an element of personal growth or training on the job that these people do. So that's a non-monetary. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So we speak about the fact that in order to get results, I just go back a little bit. We need to have map, motivation, alignment of target, and during the performance, keep calibrating the goals. And if your team is exceeding, in fact, do even better. If your team is lagging behind, you need to figure out what is happening, and again, motivate them in order to meet the goals. So motivation could be monetary or non-monetary. And these are all examples of a non-monetary motivation, because in this case, the surveyors are given a fixed target and a fixed salary on meeting the target. But beyond that, we know that they went way beyond what they needed to do. 50,000, they needed to meet 50,000. They ended up meeting 180,000 in terms of sales. That can only happen because the team is highly motivated, and it was not money that motivated them. So it's a non-monetary. So now we go to compensation plans. Compensation plans could be of two types. A fixed compensation. We have seen this in our case study with ICICI Lombard. A fixed compensation plan means that you will get a fixed salary no matter how well you do your job or how poorly you do your job. And the other is a variable plan. So a fixed plan we've spoken about now is that you get a fixed salary. How does it work? One of the advantages of a fixed plan is that it gives the salespeople a fixed salary even when markets are down. So if you can't meet your target, you're still receiving the same fixed salary from your company. Another advantage of a fixed plan from the company's point of view is that it can accurately forecast its employee cost for the entire year. The next one is that it avoids revenue disputes. I will come to this point later, but to say it very simply, what happens in a fixed plan is that you will receive a fixed salary. You're given a target, and if you exceed your target, you receive your salary. So if you have 2 or 3 teams in the same company doing the same sales job, you will never have a conflict between the teams trying to say that this client was our client or this client gave additional work to the company because of us. Because everyone is working in harmony, they are all receiving their fixed salaries. So there's no reason for 2 different teams or their managers to compete and create what are called revenue disputes. The next advantage of a fixed plan is that it provides good after sales support. So why do I say this? The reason is that if I have a fixed salary, then it is very, once I have a client on board, I'm very interested in trying to receive the same renewal business from that client next year also, which means that my after sales support will be very strong. So I will provide good support to the client in an after sales position. What would happen in a variable plan? Sorry, we'll just come to how that would work in a variable plan situation. And then finally, a fixed plan facilitate teamwork. This is something that we spoke about here. That means it avoids revenue disputes and also it facilitates teamwork. So how does a variable plan work? A variable plan means that you as an employee will receive a percentage of the sales that you produce. So it maximizes the sales production activity, which means that you will constantly be trying to look for clients, for new clients. The pay of the or the pay structure of the company is aligned completely with the revenue generation. So what do I mean by this? It means that if I have 0 sales, I will have 0 outflow in terms of employee costs. So if I have a larger sale, I'll have larger variable costs. If I have a smaller sale, I'll have. So in a pure variable plan, my pay structure to my employees is purely aligned to the revenue generation. A pure variable plan will attract only the most aggressive sales staff. So a lot of sales staff will be deterred and they don't want a pure variable plan. But some people who are very confident about their sales capability would prefer to be working on a variable plan. Now, lead to low customer retention. So this is one point that I needed to discuss earlier. In a fixed plan, I'm very much concerned about renewal business coming from clients because I receive a certain fixed salary and I will provide good after sales service. In a variable plan, what would typically happen is that my after sales service can be up or down because I'm mostly trying to generate new revenue for the company. Because my salary or my incentives are aligned with new business. And therefore, what would typically happen is that my after sales service, because I'm constantly looking for new clients, my after sales service would be a little bit lower. And that could possibly lead to lower customer retention. This is a point that we discussed just now. Which would mean that overall the company in this case would have less support for non-revenue items. So For example, let's say it was a bank. You would have uh, initially you'd have branches, and then branches would then become call centers. So anything that does not generate revenue but only provides service is likely to receive less and less support. And uh, in a variable plan organization, and mostly they'll try and keep the most aggressive sales staff. Is this clear till now?
Is there any question?
Setting fixed plan, 1 point, support salespeople when market is down.
Yes, please tell me.
Sir, fixed plan in first point support salespeople when market is down.
Yes.
Can
I
again
see.
explain?
Okay, so what happens is, for with every macroeconomic situation, sometimes you're working for a company, the economy is booming, you are able to easily achieve your sales targets. So what would happen in that case is that because the markets were booming, your products or your services are very much in demand, and you are able to easily sell your products. What would happen, let's say, if the market was not booming or not a growing economy, it's passing through a recession? At that point in time, if you were on a variable plan, you would have very big problems in terms of supporting your family because of your expenses. So, what would happen when the market is down is that if you are on a fixed plan compensation, you will still receive a fixed salary, irrespective of whether uh, sales are going up or they are constant or they are going down. So, fixed plan is somewhat like an insurance. So it's a not you won't receive in a growing market. It won't Your salary won't go up very high. In a falling market scenario, or which is the situation I've discussed, you will still receive the fixed income from your company. So that's why it supports salespeople when the market is down. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's just from a personal point of view. So usually, in reality, most companies employ a mixed plan, which is somewhat like a fixed and somewhat like a variable. So you have a fixed plan that you receive every month, or a fixed salary that you receive every month, and you'll receive a certain amount of variable compensation at the end of the year. And so, for example, it could be any percentage based on what organization you work for, how the economy is doing, how your company did, whether it was profitable or not. And so these numbers that I've put on the screen, 60 and 40, are not, in fact, like gold standard numbers. They could be anything. It could be 90-10, it could be 80-20, it could be 100 and 0. So it's just to give you an idea that usually employers will use a mixed plan with some percentage being fixed and some percentage being variable. So let us discuss about the compensation plans for an organization. We have already discussed about the salary structure in our business plan for ICICI Lombard. We can at a later date revisit that and discuss about it again. But let's move forward a little bit first. So let us discuss about variable bonuses and how do companies design them. So the design of variable bonuses is influenced by the company's budgets, the need for growth, overall revenue and profit, the potential in the territory, and I'll be discussing all of these in greater detail in the slides to come. And how long have you worked for that company, or what position you work in for that company? So a lot of these variable components are based on a variety of factors. So let us see this in greater detail now. So compensation, let us say our base case is that there was no variable bonus, and we will be discussing three cases. The case one will be a 20% commission on all sales, and a case two will be a 20% commission on all incremental sales. So let's go through these one by one. So the base case is, let's say in our ICICI Lombard format, we were looking for sales, and our team produced overall sales of 50 lakhs. Our team had a fixed expense ratio of 20%. That means about 10 lakhs was spent on things like offices, computers, etc. Things that are fixed and have no bearing on the revenues that are produced from the team. The second aspect is variable expenses. So in our base case, variable expenses were 16 odd lakhs of rupees, which amount to 32% of the overall sales. So our base case is that the company promised no variable bonuses. So this element is nil. And therefore, under this circumstance, we produced sales of 50 lakhs. Our fixed expenses were 10 lakhs. Our variable expenses were 16 lakhs. And the company had a profit of 24 lakhs. So a profitability percentage was 48% as a percentage of revenues. Let us take the second case one, which is the company now produces a variable compensation plan, whereby it says that we'll give you 20% commission on all sales from the ground up. So what happens in this case? The company has overall sales of 50 lakhs. Our fixed expenses in all the cases will remain the same. So in this case, it's 10 lakhs. Our variable expenses in the variable bonus case become also 32% of the overall revenue, which was 16 lakhs. And the variable bonus in this case was 20% of all sales. So this is 20% of 50 lakhs, which is 10 lakhs. And then, therefore, the profits that could be attributable to the shareholders of the company or the owners of the company is 50 lakhs minus 10 lakhs fixed expenses minus 16 for variable expenses and another 10 lakhs for the variable bonus that we had instituted this year. And therefore, our profit goes down by that amount, and we are left with 14 lakhs that can be given out to the shareholders. So 10 plus 16, 26 plus another 10, 36. We are left with 14 lakhs as a profit, and our percentage of profitability drops significantly from 48% to 28% this year. Now we take case two, where the company says, in fact, we will not give 20% commission on all sales, but we will give a 20% commission on all incremental sales. So what do we mean by incremental sales? We say that we are already achieving this sales target of 50 lakhs. Anything over and above this 50 lakhs, you can take a certain percentage. So again, in this case, let's say our team is able to achieve a target of 60 lakhs. Our fixed expenses stay the same, 10 lakhs. Variable expenses, I'm presuming that our variable cost structure remains the same, and we are able to produce this additional business using the same structure, which is 32% of 60 lakhs. So I'm doing an approximation, which is roughly 20 lakhs of rupees is the variable expenses in order to produce these sales of 60 lakhs. How much would the expectation of our sales team be in this case? Our sales team is now expecting to receive a 20% commission on the incremental sales that it produced, that is 20% of 10 lakhs. So that is this amount here, 20% of 10 lakhs, which means 2 lakhs of rupees. In this case, what happens is the company has a profit of 60 minus 10 minus 20 minus 2, which means that the company has a profit attributable to the shareholders at 28 lakhs. Let us see how the owners would feel about this if such a policy was introduced. In the first case, we were producing 50 lakhs and 24 lakhs was attributable to the owners at the end of the year. In the second case, case 1, company produced 50 lakhs of sales, but only 14 lakhs is attributable to the shareholders because some of it was lost to the employees. And so if I were the owner of the business, or if you were the owners of the business, I would like to ask you, would you, as owners of the business or the shareholders through the board of directors, would you accept case 1 or case 2? So just a question, I throw it out to you and I'll wait for your answers.
Answer the question. Think a while and answer the question, guys. For all. So they are saying case 2.
Case 2, okay, that's the right answer. So what happens in the base case was I had a 50 lakh sales. In the incremental case, I got 60 lakhs of sales. My profit as such goes up to 28 lakhs, but of which I'm giving a certain amount to my employees to keep them happy as well. So they feel motivated, and it also works to my advantage as the owner of the business. So I agree, case 2 would be acceptable to the shareholders. Case 1 maybe not, I don't think so. So let us move to one more situation within this. Let us move to compare case 3 now. So here again we have a base case where there was no variable bonus, and a case 3 where 20% commission on all incremental sales, but there's a subjectivity. It is subject to overall revenue and profitability targets. So let us see this situation carefully. Base case, everyone I think has understood. Our sales were 50 lakhs. Fixed expenses fixed 10 lakhs, variable expenses 32% of 50 lakhs, which is 60, and therefore a profit percentage, which is 48%, or 24 lakhs as profit. Case 2, we said incremental sales or bonuses would be based on incremental sales. So my team produced 60 lakhs of sales, and fixed expenses stayed the same. Variable expenses also, let's say they managed to keep everything in line. We gave them a bonus of 2 lakhs, and the owners of the business received 28 odd lakhs of rupees as profit attributable to the shareholders. Now let us compare case 3, which is subject to the overall revenue and profitability targets. What we have done here is to break case 3 up into 2 teams. Let's say we had 2 teams working, and one team was very profitable and the other team was somewhat profitable. So we are calling team A. Overall, they got very profitable business, and team B, which was marginally either profit or loss making. So let us take a situation of a marginally profit making situation. In this case, my team A produces sales of 30 lakhs. They have a fixed expense of 5 lakhs. So these two are basically the same case, but of the 60 lakhs, 30 lakhs team A brings and 30 lakhs team B brings. Fixed expenses are 5 and 5. Variable expenses of this team are 32% of 30 lakhs, which means approximately 10 lakhs of rupees. What is the variable bonus that my employees expect in team A? Let's calculate that. So they went from 25 lakhs to 30 lakhs this year, and they expected to receive a 20% commission, which was a lakh of rupees. So this is what their expectation is. How do they arrive at that? The team says our sales was 30 lakhs, our fixed expenses was 5 lakhs, our variable expenses was 10 lakhs, and if you were to give us a bonus of a lakh of rupees, we would still be profitable, and overall percentage of profitability of the company remains the same. Let's see how team B performed. Team B produced the same revenues as team A, 30 lakhs, at the same fixed expenses, 5 lakhs. Their variable expenses were much higher. Let's say it could be that they were in the insurance business, they underwrote some business that was unprofitable, or maybe their team, they had a lot of people resigning and moving out, and they had to hire more people at higher costs. Whatever. It could be due to a variety of reasons. So let's say there was an unforeseen higher variable expenses. So in this case, their expense ratio goes up to 60% of this 30 lakhs. So about 18 lakhs is their variable expenses. What does the team expect as a bonus? The team expects that we still got our revenue still went up by 5 lakhs, so we should still receive a lakh of rupees. Is this fair to team A and to team B? Would this expectation be correct? Because team A is much more profitable than team B. So now in case of team B, the profit from their operations is 30 minus 5, which is 25, minus another 18, which is 7, and their expectation for a variable bonus, which is a lakh of rupees. So they, let's say the team's profit to the company attributable to the shareholders is 6 lakhs rupees. So now we compare case 3, which is a summary of these two teams overall. They produced 60 lakhs of revenue, yes. Revenues was up from 50 last year to 60 overall. Fixed expenses was fixed, 10 lakhs of rupees. Variable expenses was 28 lakhs. And now the variable expense, both in these cases, is 2 lakhs. But the profit attributable to the shareholders, in this case earlier was 28 lakhs, now is only 20 lakhs, 14 plus 6. So as a business owner or as a shareholder, I would, or most business owners would say that I was better off not increasing my sales, but having a higher profit than to increase my sales and having to pay to have less profit. So that's why we have put down this case where we say that a 20% commission on incremental sales is acceptable, but subject to overall revenue and profitability targets. So a lot of the employment contracts that you will actually end up signing with your potential employers will have these things. And this is an example of, as a sales leader, how you also help to curtail costs for the company, so that overall the business remains profitable, but you as an employee or as a team leader also partake in some of the success that you are bringing to the company. So in this case, you can clearly see that members of Team A would feel very upset that what they should have received as a bonus may be less than what they'll receive because Team B underperformed. So is this clear? Is everyone understanding what we are trying to do here? Or I can repeat it?
Sir, please repeat the variable expense and bonus part.
Okay. So should I go back to the previous slide, or just this slide is?
Sir, only this slide.
Okay, okay. So just for one moment, we go back and we'll come back to this slide. We are very clear of a base case. This is clear to us. We are very clear that that variable bonuses should be attributable to incremental sales and not the overall sales. So that was what we discussed there. Let us discuss a case of commission being based on incremental sales, but also there's a further conditionality subject to overall revenue and profitability targets of the company. This is the point in discussion here. Just give me one moment. Yeah. So the point in discussion here is that we have a situation where commissions are payable on all incremental sales, but they are still subject to overall revenue and profitability targets. So let us discuss this in greater detail. Base case is clear to all of us. The incremental sales or variable bonus being tied to incremental sales is clear to all of us. These two lines are clear to everyone. Now, case 3 brings a situation where one team in the company is overall very profitable, and another team is not so profitable. Somehow, maybe they were asked to handle a different, a tougher market, or there was some problem there. So, so therefore, there was they underperformed. So let us see how it works now. Team A's revenue went up from 25 last year, that was the base case, to 30 lakhs. Team A's fixed expenses was half the overall expenses, 5 lakhs of rupees. Team A's variable expenses was same as last year, 32% of the 30 lakhs that sales that they produced, which is roughly 10 lakhs of rupees. Team A now expects to receive from the company 20% of the overall sales target or incremental sales target. So incremental sales was 5 lakhs of rupees, up from 25, and therefore it expects to receive a bonus pool of 1 lakh of rupees. So team A quite profitable, just like in this situation, case 2, 46% profitability of team A. Let us see how team B did. Team B produced the same sales as team A. Team B had the same fixed expenses as team A, but team B had a much higher variable expenses. this was due to some unforeseen losses in the business that they undertook. And so their expenses of team B were much higher in term, so which was, let's say, 60% of 30 lakhs. These are all presumed numbers. So it could be 90%, it could be 30%, if team, whatever number we produce. In our case, we have presumed that this number is much higher than the 32% which was last year. So in this case, team B end up spending or costing the company 18 lakhs of rupees. Now, team B, under the terms of the contract that they had with the company, that they will receive a 20% commission on all incremental sales. They still expect to receive, because they got sales of 30 lakhs, they still expect to receive 1 lakh rupee as a bonus. Now, what my question is that these two teams, team A produced the same revenue as team B with the same fixed cost, but produced much lesser expenses and is expecting to receive a 1 lakh rupee bonus. Team B had a much higher expense ratio, but is still expecting to receive a lakh of rupees. So is this fair to team A, to the members of team A, that they receive the same bonus as team B? Imagine that there are two people working in an organization and you produce the same revenues, but you cost much lesser to the company and the other person costs much more to the company. So if you're receiving your variable bonuses, would you expect to receive much higher, or would you expect to receive the same variable bonus?
Yes, sir. Same variable.
So in this case, team A, the members of team A, I think would expect to receive much higher than team B because their team overperformed compared to team A. The reason is fixed cost, revenues same, fixed cost same, variable expenses team A much lower, team B bought in business but at a much higher cost to the company, and therefore I would think that the members of team A would expect a much higher bonus than team B.
Yes,
Would
hello
you
guys.
think about it?
Have you got it? Yes. If you got it, please proceed further.
Okay. So now in this case, the case 3, both these teams, in a summary, I have summed up these numbers here. 30 and 30 lakhs produced 60 lakhs, fixed expenses 10, variable expenses in this case was 28 lakhs, variable bonus, let's say the company gave them that bonus, both 2 lakhs, and therefore the company had a profit of 20 lakhs of rupees. Now, how would the owners of the business feel in this case? Would they, for the same growth, 60 lakhs, same fixed expenses, but now variable expenses have gone much higher, profit much lower. So maybe the owners of the business don't feel so happy in granting this variable bonus. This is the point we are trying to bring about, to say that variable bonuses are tied not just to the incremental sales that they produce, but also to the overall revenue, how much you produce, and overall profitability targets of them. So that is the point that we were trying to bring about here. I'll just have to break for a few moments to try and connect my computer to the charger. So we can take a break and we can restart this discussion. Okay? 5
Okay,
minutes.
sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. You can take a break for 5 minutes.
Huh. Hi, sorry for the break. So we were discussing about the fact that that purely variable bonus as a percentage of sales is not a good idea for companies. Purely variable bonus as a percentage of incremental sales is also not good for the company, because salespeople may be um, are willing to sort of undertake more and more risky business in order to achieve their sales targets. So it has to be subject to the overall revenue of the company, but also profitability targets. This was the point that we were trying to bring about here. So at the end of this, we would like to ask, as a shareholder, would you prefer uh, case 2 or case 3? So let me just correct this. It should be pointing this way. So let us compare these two situations. In situation 1, we had incremental sales of 10 lakhs, of which I gave a variable bonus to my the staff of 2 lakhs, and I still maintained higher than the base case scenario. So I still got 28 lakhs as the profit. In case 3, I underwrote 60 lakhs of business. Everything else was the same except my variable expenses were higher. My employees expected the same variable bonus, but my profitability was way much less. So as the owner of a business, I would prefer that my variable bonus be tied to the uh, to incremental sales, but also to the overall profitability targets of the company. So here in our next situation, we discuss the a situation where variable bonuses are tied to individuals within the company based on how long they have been with the company and how senior they are in the hierarchy of the company. So case 2 was a situation of incremental sales of 10 lakhs of rupees. So my sales had gone up from 50 to 60 lakhs of rupees. My fixed expenses stayed the same. My variable expenses went up from roughly 16 lakhs to 20 lakhs. My variable bonus went up by about 2 lakhs from 0 to 2 lakhs, and my profitability still went up. Case 4 is a case of incremental sales where this extra sales of 10 lakhs is brought about by sales effort by junior staff. Everything else remains the same, but the variable bonus is paid only to the managers or to the senior staff. So in this case, what happens is that the variable bonus received by the juniors, even though the sales was brought about by the junior staff, becomes discretionary. In the for the senior staff, they will get paid according to the contract, and for the junior staff, it will be purely discretionary, which means it is at the discretion of the management. Uh, ir, uh, and in addition to profitability targets, etc. So the it is possible that the sales head can give the entire 2 lakhs to the junior staff, but it could also be possible that they may not receive anything because it's discretionary. So again, there's a situation where there's a mismatch in terms of the expectations. Here, the junior staff produced the sales. They expected to receive the variable bonus, but it was actually received by the senior staff in the organization. So these are some of the things that we had discussed about, and we would like to say that variable bonuses are designed in line with the company's budgets, defined by the need of growth. So if the company really needs growth, it will clearly go out and put a variable sales target or give out a variable bonus. They will be designed to bear in mind overall profitability and revenue targets. Territory potential is an interesting concept where, for example, there's a territory and it's quite saturated. Say, for example, I perceive that the maximum sales that I can produce out of a territory is 50 lakhs of rupees. So in order to incentivize my staff, I can put out and say that if you go out and do 55 lakhs of rupees sales this year in this territory, you will be able to achieve a higher variable bonus. So it is one way of getting your team to outperform beyond the territory potential that you had by putting out a nice strong variable bonus. And then variable bonuses are tied to the tenure of salespersons, how long they have been in the job with the company, and in what position they work. So this is roughly compensation plans for you. At this point in time, I would like to share with you, because you are just joining the industry, I would like to share with you that all compensation is not monetary compensation. A lot of compensation or motivation comes from non-monetary sources. And I would urge you to look at, when you are young in an organization trying to improve your CVs, work for organizations in interesting capacities, look for the non-monetary compensation as trainings, meeting or working with senior people in the organization as an enriching experience. These things are way more valuable than the money that you can receive at a young stage as a variable bonus. So here I'd like to play a short video that sort of confirms my belief. And I'd just like to share the link with you. Ankita, please could you see if you could play this for the students? I'm not sure the audio is.
Click the subscribe button and press the bell icon to never miss a video from Juice Talks. So let me begin with my induction into the Indian Military Academy. I came from Delhi University. I was a complete, as we call in the army, Colgate, because I came from college, whereas the other friends of ours would come from NDA or from Sainik School and other military backgrounds. And I remember, so in the Indian Military Academy, you have 3 terms: third, second, and first.
Sorry. Sorry.
Click the subscribe button and press the bell icon to never miss a video from Juice Talks. So let me begin with my induction into the Indian Military Academy. I came from Delhi University. I was a complete, as we call in the army, Colgate, because I came from college, whereas the other friends of ours would come from NDA or from Sainik School and other military backgrounds. And I remember, so in the Indian Military Academy, you have 3 terms: third, second, and first. And the third termers are the kings, the second termers are known as the princes, and the first termers are way below even human beings. They are like animals. So that's the way they are treated. Something like college also. It happens in colleges also. Not that bad. And in the first class, the first day when we had our class, I remember an instructor came and he addressed all the first termers and he said, I hope you're all settled in and you're all okay. And then he asked this question: any problem? Anyone has any problem? And when I was at Delhi University, so I was a little bit of a union leader there. So I raised my hand.
Hello, hi Ankita.
Yes, there is a problem. So immediately I found some of my other classmates.
Okay. Okay, so yes, so we begin. The important message in this conversation is that there will be ups and downs in terms of the way your compensations or your expectations. Uh, in a certain scenario, we spoke about the fact that team A was let down by team B and therefore may or may not receive the same uh, uh, variable bonus. In another situation, um, there was a junior staff who was working very hard and got additional sales, but variable bonus was paid to the senior staff. So these things will happen. A very important component of corporate life is don't sweat the small stuff. Not to be worried about these things. These things happen, but you should always be constantly focused on doing good for yourself and doing better and better each and every year. So not to get stuck down into nitty gritty problems and wasting your time over them. So our next slide takes us to the fact we have discussed that variable bonuses are designed by companies as a composite of a lot of these rules, companies' budgets, the need for growth, overall revenue and profit targets to be met, the territory's potential. So if it's sort of achieving its potential in order to outdo it, sometimes variable bonuses are granted, and how long you have been with the company or what position you work with. So here are some additional thoughts on variable bonuses. Companies or US sales managers can eliminate caps on compensation but freeze based salaries. So a freeze based salary means that everyone can receive a certain base salary based on what contract they have signed with the company, but we eliminate a cap on compensation. So which means that if any incremental sales that each and every person brings about can yield better personal remuneration for them. Base salaries should be adjusted to the cost of living. So, based on well, if you're working in Mumbai, you will receive a higher base salary as opposed to if you're working in Pune, for example, or if you're in the metro areas. Maybe Delhi might have a higher base salary compared to, say, Calcutta. I'm not sure, but just to give you examples. Then companies would be to try and make the compensation plan fair for most people. Companies can try and have more or less similar compensation plans for all their sales staff. Incentives should be based on very objective criteria. So discretionary bonuses are actually not a good idea because it tends to yield to favoritism. Or if you're unhappy with somebody, then you'll tend to give them a much lesser compensation. So it should be based on objective criteria. And new business should have higher incentives than renewal or repeat business. So clearly, it's much harder to get newer business, and we have discussed about this as well when we spoke about the fact that you will receive your compensation variable bonus as a percentage of the incremental business that the company writes. So the next stage that we go to is called compensation governance. Compensation governance would mean that the human resources team or the sales staff head, when he's hiring a person, very clearly explains to his staff who is eligible to receive a performance or a variable bonus and who's not eligible and when are they eligible. The formulas for compensation and commissions are calculated or laid out or explained. Um, revenue disputes will start to happen because you might have, if you're giving a variable compensation based on, because you'll have employees saying that I contributed to get a certain account into the company, or I contributed to create the first point of contact. So it's very important to know how disputes will be settled in terms of which team accounts for how much revenue, and who will be the adjudicator or the person who makes the decisions as to how revenue disputes are settled within the company. Then another aspect would be the time of payment of commissions. Are they commissions paid quarterly, annually, half yearly, etc.? And whether and under what circumstance the compensation plan can be either discontinued or changed. So beyond these factors, compensation plans should be very clear in terms of spelling out when people who leave the company to join a competitor or leave a company to join for personal reasons, or if they are asked to leave, what happens to the bonus that they were supposed to receive. So with most companies, the status is like this, that if you join a competitor, you forfeit your bonus. If you're asked to leave, clearly you forfeit your bonus. But what is unclear is if you were to leave a company for personal reasons. So, for example, let's say you're getting married and moving to another city. So, it's for a personal reason, but you have worked 10 months in the organization and produced significant sales. So, at what point in time can you ask your employer that they ought to prorate your variable bonus? All of these factors should actually be discussed with your employers. And then, what percentage of bonuses will be paid when the first time a business is booked? That means a client came on board, and let's say if it's a large or if it's a long-term contract, so you'll have an initial joining, and then as milestone payments are made, let's say you ship out certain products or you perform certain services, or your invoices are settled, what are the percentages that are paid at those specific milestones? Finally, how will commissions be settled if customers fail to pay for a product or service? Usually, what would happen is that the final payment from a customer on a long term contract would mean that they'll keep some amount of money as a caution deposit, or or they'll find some fault in terms of the product or the service that was delivered and try and reduce the invoice payable. So, compensation governance means that the salesperson should know, even at that point in time, how commissions will be settled if clients withhold money of the company. So, how do you test or improve your compensation plan? You can explain to your team and everyone understands it. That's the first test. The majority of people perceive the plans to be fair. Your sales revenues increase from previous years. Yes, it's working because you promised them a variable bonus and your sales started to increase. Your top salespeople are retained. That means that they are turning down job offers from other companies. This also points to introspection, which means that maybe you are paying them too much as well. So these are the various compensation plans and tests, and then you sort of improve upon them. Now it brings us to the last two slides of today. The first one is that India is changing a lot, and there are many, many things that are happening in our society, and there are many opportunities for sales staff. So I've just put down a few examples. Say, for example, sports marketing, something that did not exist in our country a few years back. Now we have, for example, the IPL, the Badminton League, Kabaddi, soccer, and then the Khelo India Games. So I think the ICICI Lombard questions we've already discussed, so I'm not going to discuss them anymore. And the other part is there's a lot of again changes in India in terms of consumer products. For our case studies, we have one case study in the next session based on Cycle brand Agarbatti, and one case study on the MTR group. I would now urge you to read about these before we come back to our next class. Um, and then we are also seeing that overall the entire world is shifting away from malls to online purchase of products. And so what happens to all the malls that have been created in our country? And what are your thoughts on these? So I've put down a variety of situations. Gyms are an option, yoga is an option in terms of fitness, and it's yoga, for example, is taking the world by storm. And can its success be replicated in India? So I leave a lot of these questions to you, and I would urge you to read these two case studies, the Cycle brand Agarbatti and the MTR case study, and we can carry on our discussion next time. So with that, I'll open up the for questions, and please feel free to ask me any questions now.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Sir, can you go 2 slide back?
Yeah, sure. Is it this one or this one?
Yes, sir. No, sir. The next one.
Previous one.
Yes, sir.
This one? Okay.
To join competitor and for personal reason and asked to leave. Can you
Yes.
explain these three?
Okay, sure. So typically what we are saying in compensation governance is that you as an employee ought to have a very clear understanding of whether you're eligible to receive a variable compensation. How will the variable compensation be calculated? If revenues are disputed between two teams, who will adjudicate and decide which team will receive, or in what proportion both teams will receive the revenues? Then you ought to know when commissions will be paid. Usually, quarterly is better than annual because you can work the entire year. And then maybe, let's say you had to leave the company to join another company. Let's say you worked for 10 months in the company, you produced a lot of sales, but you had to leave because you were getting married and your husband or your wife live in another city. that is an example of personal reasons. So you leave your organization not because of not because you're leaving to join another company, or you're asked to leave. Asked to leave would typically mean that you were underperforming, or there was something wrong in let's say you took over the company's data or something like that, and so you were asked to leave as such. So in that case, you will certainly not get any variable bonus. In the first case, which is you're joining a competitor, also it is very unlikely that any company will pay you any bonus. But in the second case, where you are leaving for personal reasons, and you would and if those reasons had not arisen, let's say somebody's health is not well, so you have to return to your hometown, things like that. So because you've worked 10 months, you expect to receive the variable commission for the work that you have done through the year. So that's what we are discussing here, that governance of a good variable compensation model is very important in terms of knowing how it will be calculated, when it will be paid, um, whether it can be discontinued, what if you were to leave the company due to personal reasons, and if it's a company that receives revenues on a long-term basis, maybe it's a road building organization, then when will the company receive payments, and when will you receive a variable bonus from the company? So all of these things are very important, and it's important for you as an employee to discuss this with your manager. And similarly, when you are the sales team's heads, your employees will ask you these questions, and you have to be willing to answer those questions to them. So this is what we are saying in that part.
Thank you, sir.
Would that be clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Any other question? Any other question, guys? So no more question from their side.
Okay, so we'll wrap up for today. My suggestion is that the MTR case study and the cycle brand agarbatti case study, if the students can read, and then we can sort of conduct that the next time.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, sir.